Welcome to Jurassic Park.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
No, I am your father.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Hello, I'm your host, Jim McClean. Welcome back to another episode of More Than Pixels on a Screen, a movie-loving podcast brought to you by the BanterFlix film review website. As always, there will be spoilers, there will be tangents, but hopefully that makes it much more special for you, dear listener. Hopefully you'll enjoy the experience. On this episode, we are free now from the shackles of our spooky season. We have taken a little break after our Dark Hedges International Film Festival, but we are back. And we are ready to talk rambly movie nonsense. And we thought, what better way to start by having a Disney special and to finally getting round to something we started many, many years ago, quite a long time ago, as we finally complete our retrospective of Disney's dark era. Yes, it is another episode of More Than Disney Pixels on a Screen. This week we are going to be talking about Oliver and Company, 1988 feature from the House of Mouse. So because it's a Disney-themed special, I have to have our resident Disney queen. That, of course, is the lovely Victoria Brown. So, hello, Victoria.
Hi.
So, we're talking about Oliver and Company. Do you want to very quickly, before I introduce our next guest, do you want to set this up for us?
If you haven't seen it, it's essentially just Oliver Twist, but animated. It's about a little orphan called Oliver who gets taken in by a street gang and just kind of learns the ways of the streets until he gets adopted by a adorable little child called Jenny.
Who has a dog voiced by Bette Midler.
Yes, she does.
So, as always, we can't just be you and I talking about all things House of Mice. I'm joined by the lovely Maria McQuillan on this episode. So, hello to you, Maria.
Hello.
I think this is the first time we've actually had you in the studio here at Q Radio. We've had you on the pods before through the remotely webby spear that is Zoom.
Yes.
But now we have you in the studio for even more rambling nonsense.
It's excellent.
So, we're going to have a bit of fun with this. So, I don't know, very quickly before we get into, had you seen this, Maria, before we asked you to discuss it on the pod?
So, funnily enough, this is a Disney film I really don't like. And so when I was watching this, I was like, oh, God. Like, it was quite funny because I'd forgotten. I think during COVID I tried to watch this and I couldn't watch it. So it's the first
Dear
time I've
listener,
watched it.
can I just say, right? Can I just say the sense of hurt,
I'm questioning our
disappointment,
entire friendship.
hurt, disappointment, sadness. I just seen in the lovely Victoria Brown's face there a range of emotions in the space of like 4 seconds.
Yeah, I could see, like, from the side, I was like, I know what I have done, but it's too far. I'm too far gone now,
Well, I will say at this point, Maria, I'm going to weigh in your defence here. We've actually tried to record this episode quite a few times, but we've been knocked back a couple of times. I wasn't well, you weren't well, Victoria, on a certain occasion. So I've watched this twice. I never watched this when I was younger. And I mean, this has been the beauty of this kind of Dark Age retrospective. Some of these I remember, the Rishkuish, and others, like the likes of the Black Cauldron, I never watched, and I didn't have any kind of that rose-tinted nostalgia. Definitely didn't have it for this. So I've watched this twice in preparation for the various recordings. And the first time, I don't think I have the message still, but I just imagine now what happened when I sent this message to Victoria after watching her reaction there when when you said you didn't like this.
Yeah.
So I think I went along the lines, oh, sorry, we'll not be able to record the episode. I'm not well, Jim's like, oh, it's okay, no problem. It's all right. I didn't really like it anyway. And I can just imagine, Brown having a similar reaction there, to which the response was, oh, interesting.
Oh.
That was the response. And I kind of went, oh, I feel kind of bad now. Even more so now I haven't watched that reaction there. I will say, I know we're going to have to play a clip and then we'll get into talking a wee bit more specifically about the film. Watching it a second time, I still have problems with it, which we'll come to. I enjoyed it more the second time than the first time. First time I really didn't like it. I mean, the first time I was like, if I wasn't watching this for the pod, I'd have probably turned it off.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I'll save this point. But anyway, I think on that note, I mean, we've talked a wee bit, we've set it up, we've introduced everybody. So we've introduced everybody. I think this is the perfect note where we'll play a clip of the film.
Where do you taste this? The secret recipe I just invented.
What on earth? My goodness, Jenny! Don't you think a tin of kitty chow would have sufficed?
Nonsense! You'll love this.
Now, young lady, I really think we should have waited until your parents... Ugh! Oh, bother.
And for the kitty, the house special tea. Où c'est la Jenny avant Cocoa Krispies?
Jenny, it's your parents.
Yeah! Wait till I tell them.
Oh, yes, sir. I do assure you everything is absolutely hunky... Georgette, I wouldn't go in there if I were you. Everything's fine here.
They're gonna be so excited.
Here she is now.
Cat! What is the meaning of this? Bark! Bark! Winston! Bark! 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 I guess I'll have to handle this myself. Hello?
Hello.
I hope you won't think me rude, but do you happen to know out of whose bowl you're eating?
Yours?
Ooh, aren't you a clever kitty? And do you have any idea whose home this is?
I thought it was Jenny's.
Well, it may be Jenny's house, but everything from the doorknobs down is mine!
Oh, Georgette, I see you met Oliver. Isn't he cute? I've got great news. Mom and Dad just said I could keep him.
So that's a clip of Oliver and Company, as we say, 1988 Disney feature. Brian, do you want to give us a bit of setup about... I know you've kind of set up the film, but I mean, kind of where this kind of weighs in, where this kind of comes in within the House of Mice. This is the last film within our Dark Era retrospective. So we've had... The last one was Basil, the Great Mouse Detective. If I'm correct, it feels a lifetime ago. Feels like a long, long time ago when we were talking about the Aristo cats.
Hey!
Feels a long time ago since we started kind of talking about that. So where does this weigh in within the House of Mouse's impressive back catalogue?
So Oliver and Company is the 27th animated feature for the House of Mouse. Like Jim said there, it's the very last film in the Disney Dark Age era. So this was an era in between Walt Disney passing and the Disney Renaissance, which started the following year in 1989 with The Little Mermaid. During this period, the animators were just essentially very lost. They didn't really have a clear path to follow. They didn't really know what to do without Walt Disney there to kind of guide them. This film's a bit of a strange one because the idea was floated back when they did The Black Cauldron, and if you listen to that episode, you'll know it absolutely tanked at the box office. It did not do well. It's not a very well-known Disney film, and it's still not unless you watched it as a kid. But this film was actually pitched as a sequel to The Rescuers at one point. I don't know what way they would have done that, but they kind of liked the idea of using a story that was already well known, which they kind of really did in this era. They had Robin Hood, they had The Great Mouse Detective. They've kind of relied on having an audience that already existed, having an audience that were already familiar with the story, and just putting a bit of a modern spin on it, because this era they did kind of go back and forth between time periods, but I think they wanted a very modern 80s capitalist America kind of aesthetic, which I do think they achieve, but it maybe makes it a bit more of its time rather than having that like Disney timelessness to it.
Yeah, it's very time. I mean, when I was talking about this with my lovely wife, she refused to believe that it was a Disney movie. She was like, "Oh, it's like the All Dogs Go to Heaven." It's like those type of films where it's a different studio. It wasn't Disney.
It does feel very.
And when
Don
you
Bluth.
watch it, you can kind of see it. I mean, I'm not going to do my token at this point when we mention that, and kind of I'll go off to a reference about Fievel Goes West. I'm not. I promise I'm not. Maybe later. I'll see how it goes. But doesn't feel, for a large part of it, doesn't feel like a Disney film. I can see where my wife comes from. I mean, it doesn't feel like a Disney film in the same sense. And we've had this discussion quite a bit when we've talked about, and you mentioned it there, Brian, that sense that there's no kind of set Disney theme in this. It's like, probably you have the likes of the Aristocats, you have the Rescuers. It does feel very Disney. Then there's all these other kind of other stuff like Basil the Great Mouse Detective, which we talked about previously. And then we have the Black Cauldron. And then I'm struggling to think off the top of my head of other films off the top of my head. I should have the list in front of me. But it does feel, it's a bit like all over the place in what it's trying to do. But I don't know, I'm not a massive fan of this. But we've mentioned, Maria's mentioned, she's put her cards pretty clearly out right from the get-go. Yeah. You have nostalgia for this. But not just you, Victoria, but your lovely mum. Hello, Mrs. Brown. And I know Victoria says I should address you with your first name, but I have never met you. So it has to be Mrs. Brown until we've actually formally met. And we have tried to get you into the studio. You have only been a person we've mentioned in passing. But this time, specifically, I said, could we get a lovely voice note from your mum? Because we couldn't get her into the studio, Victoria. And she has kindly obliged, because you said your mum was very upset when I said I wasn't fussed on Oliver and Company. Has she met Maria?
Not yet, but I don't know if she'd want to.
I don't know if she's going to want to.
I think this is the final deal in that coffin.
Yeah, I don't think Mrs. Brown. I mean, I've had my saving grace. I said I liked it more the second time round than I watched the first time. But I don't know if you're going to get an invite round, Maria, to the Brown household. So on that note, let's play a little voice note from the lovely Mrs. Brown.
I like Oliver and Company because it's child-friendly version of Oliver Twist and softens down how the dark side of it, basically. It's sweet, it's funny, the music's good, the characters are good. I like Dodger's character. Just generally enjoy it.
So there we go. That was lovely. It's sweet and cute, Victoria. I'm sure like your lovely mum is sweet and cute. I don't know. I can't say. So there we go. Mrs. Brown again. I'm not Maria. I like this film a little bit more the second time round. So do you feel bad now, Maria? You know, this is something not only does the lovely Victoria, who's very hurt by your thoughts towards the film. Not only that, but now Mrs. Brown as well has been very upset. Well, listening to this right now, she's going to be going, Maria, she seemed like a nice girl.
Seemed.
Yeah.
I think for me, I'm just going to have to double down. There's no clawing my way out of this. I'm not saving my reputation.
That's fine.
I hate Oliver and Company. I said it.
Can I ask why? Why specifically? Because when I first watched it, I found it really disjointed and all over the place. And it just felt like in a few of these films we've talked about in this era, it felt like Disney, and Victoria's already kind of mentioned this sense of Disney trying to find itself and trying to be relevant and being able to sell these animated movies to kids and to their parents and get them out to the cinema. And it just didn't gel for me the first. I think second time round when I knew it was in for, it's like, right, you're doing Oliver and Co. Then it's like you're doing Oliver Twist and you've got this. Then Bette Midler shows up and you've got this cutesy kid, and it reminds me actually of Penny. She does remind me of Penny from The Rescuers. And I don't know whether that's just because of how she's drawn or anything like that. And I didn't like it the first time round. Second time round, I kind of knew it was in for it, and I said, right, okay, I can relax into this. I watched it. It was fine. You clearly are doubling down. You're not for turning. The lady is not for turning. So you don't like this. Why?
I think for me, every time I've watched it, and like, it's how obsessed the film is with New York without ever really talking about New York. Because, like, it opens with New York. Throughout the film, we get so many shots of, like, Central Park, like, downtown Manhattan. Like, there's so much of the film is to do with that. But, like, you could have said it anywhere. It did not matter that they did those scenes at the beginning and the middle, like, throughout. Like, it has no relevance other than a few throwaway lines in songs. I think, do you know, I think there's, for me, the more I think about it, the worse it is. Like, yeah, I think when it opens with that.
Not even that lovely Huey Lewis song?
Oh, no, hated it. That's another thing, hated the music in it. There wasn't a single song. Actually, do you know what?
Not even little Oliver, he kind of is in the streets of New York and he hears someone playing a wee ghetto blaster and he's like, I'm bopping here.
There's cute moments of animation. I like the little bopping moment. I liked whenever it's him and the little girl and she's playing the piano. I think there's a really nice animation scene.
Oh, when he's turning the pages.
Turning the pages and it kind of goes around the piano. I was like, that's lovely. And then that's kind of it for me for most of the film. I love Bette Midler in it. I love the fact she's a villain. She's my villain. I think the real villain in it is worthless in comparison to her.
But she learns the error of her ways.
And then she gets with a horrible little chihuahua who then rejects her.
Yeah. That's Cheech Martin for you.
Yeah.
What can I say? But you've got Billy Joel as Dodger.
I did not like Dodger. Dodger annoyed me. Dodger stole from Oliver at the beginning. Anyway, that's just one opinion. I don't know.
So
there was
it was basically your hatred from the very. Let's just deep.
Yeah.
Were you wronged at some point? Did someone
by Billy Joel?
Did Billy Joel come to you and say, Maria, let's steal some sausages together? And you're like, yes, Billy Joel, I'll do whatever you want, Piano Man. And you helped him with the heist.
Yeah.
And then he was like, no, I'm going to keep all these sausages for myself.
That's capitalism, baby.
Yeah.
No, I think for me, there's something about the film. You kind of said the word disjointed. You said the word disjointed earlier. And I think that's, for me, a part of it is like, I don't like the style of the film. I think as well, I don't like it as an adaptation of Oliver. So I think that fundamentally, I don't enjoy the plot because it's not enough of Oliver for me to enjoy, but it's too much of whatever Disney was trying to do. Like, I think as well, I didn't like that for a film about New York, I didn't think the music at times felt very, because like you've that bit with the beatbox at the beginning, and I was like, I would have actually loved more of that kind of music in it if you were going to go for that, if you're going for 80s New York. I don't know. I there's just a lot of it where I was, and I also just have the bias of I don't like the film, and I've just rewatched it.
I'm sorry.
No. Like, but that's the beauty of doing this. Is like, it was like, maybe I'll give this another go, and then I remembered I don't like this film.
Not even Roscoe Lee Brown as Francis.
Do you know, there was a bit where he's like, he's just disgusted at something somebody's done, and I was like, yeah, me too, Francis.
So Victoria. So I remember very vividly in a previous podcast, you talked about this film, and you talked about this film making you cry in the opening sequence with your little catch in the box, and then Oliver's the only one left. And you cried. So what's your thoughts? What's going through your head right now? I've already seen. I know this is an audio medium. I mean, maybe at some point we will. And I will not be as lazy and think about turning this podcast into some kind of video medium, but we've already got the TV show for that. But, I mean, people didn't get to see the expression that went through your face, literally, like about 5 emotions in the space of 5 seconds. If that was an animator, they would be having a nightmare. So, you've just listened to Maria be very negative. I haven't really weighed in. I've just said I didn't like it the first time I watched it, and it was just that sense of watching it, knowing I was watching it for this, having no real rose-tinted nostalgia for it, no memory of watching this when I was a kid, and kind of going, I could really easily turn this off. I don't find myself compelled to go, oh, what's going to happen here? Some of the voice, I mean, there is a good, I will say this, I know you didn't like Billy Joel because he's wronged you, Maria.
He's personally wronged me.
He is wronged you, that piano man. When will he learn? But I mean, looking at it, it does have a pretty impressive voice cast. I mean, it really does. And the last time we had you on, Victoria, we were talking about Hocus Pocus. We've got Bette Midler, as you've already mentioned. Maria as, I wouldn't say she's a villain. She's just a bit of a prude. She's a bit of a snob, and she likes her thing, and she doesn't like this little kind of bit of rough that is Oliver coming into the house and getting all the attention. But I digress. You clearly do have a lot of love for this, as does your mum. Because this is the first, on all the episodes, this is the first one where she's been compelled, and not because I asked. She's been compelled to send a little voice note in. So, you've listened to both Maria and I talk a wee bit about the film. Where are you going to weigh in?
See, my problem is, I can see where Maria's coming from, because storyline-wise, it really doesn't follow Oliver, but I think when I was younger, I watched this very, very young, so I wasn't aware of Oliver Twist yet. And there's nothing really in it that would indicate that it is an adaptation. So it was only when I was older and watched the proper Oliver Twist, I was like, oh, the Disney one must have been based off that. So I didn't have that kind of informing how I perceived the film. And again, I agree with Maria. Like, if you're going to set something in New York, make it matter. Like, that could have been set in London, it could have been set in Liverpool. Like,
it's the only kind of thing I can think. There's the finale on the Brooklyn Bridge, but it doesn't specifically need to be the Brooklyn Bridge.
That could have been in San Francisco. It could have been any bridge. It really doesn't matter, which is kind of disappointing, but like you've said, I have a lot of love for this film, and a lot of that comes from my mum. This was one we watched quite a lot, and I'm going to assume, Mum, please weigh in, I'm going to assume it's because Billy Joel is in it. Like, not only does he sing the songs, but he voices a character.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to know Disney's thought process behind that, because like, Bette Midler and Billy Joel, they wouldn't have been cheap.
No.
Like, they must have had a lot of faith in this film to get names that big, but I don't understand why. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't know what their logic, or like, did they all sit down at a table and be like, right, who's really famous right now? Who do we need to get in for this? I don't know. Because,
I mean, it's key to point out, the film wasn't a flop.
No.
I don't think it was a huge box office success. I think if I'm right, I don't have the fact in front of me, I think it was released around, it wasn't All Dogs Go to Heaven, it was Land Before Time.
Same day, I think.
Yeah, I think it was released, and it kind of came out at the same time, and then it was re-released again. So, I mean, it found an audience. I think at the time it was very much lukewarm reviews. I mean, it wasn't overly positive. Clearly a lot more in the Maria camp than the Brown household. And I get it. I mean, I just think at this time, you look back in the kind of the grand scheme of things, Disney had dominated the animated kind of genre for so long. And now in around this time, we start to see other studios are saying, well, we can do maybe not to the same high standard that Disney had done in the past, but to the same standard. I mean, we think of stuff like, I've just got a list up in front of me, like the likes of The Fox and the Hound, which, you know, the saddest film of all time. Aristocats, as we said, we've already mentioned. Basil, the Great Mouse Detective, I'm not a huge fan of. I don't think it's amazing. Again, I think like this, it's a studio trying to do something with a property. And trying to, I mean, you release it now, you can see it's like, right, you've got Sherlock and all that stuff. That's a license to print money now. But at the time, I don't know if it has the same draw, and I don't know if many kids, when they were that age in the late 80s, going, oh, can we really go see this animated film based on Oliver Twist? Oliver Twist has its fans, you know. A lot of people do like Oliver Twist. I always like a bit of Harry Seacombe more every now and again. But I don't know. It's a weird film, and I guess it come back to that point, that it's that sense of a studio trying to kind of find its feet. Like, off the top of my head, I don't have it in front of me. What comes after this?
Little Mermaid.
So then you go back to, as if like it's like a sense like Disney, we've tried this, and we go back to something that is essentially, when you think of it, I mean, Little Mermaid is up there and kind of, I think, with so many of like the quintessential Disney movies. It's like they react to that and go, because I always think that's interesting when you look at a studio or a director, it's like, what preceded it and what came after it? And here you have this. So before this, you have Basil, the Mouse Detective, Great Mouse Detective. I think I always call it that. I always get the name wrong. And then you have Little Mermaid. They're the last two films. You can see, well, that, yeah, it kind of makes sense. That follows suit. But then it's like, right, let's go completely back to, it's almost like someone said, let's go back to basics. what would Walt do? I don't know. I mean, it's not to say it doesn't have its charm. I think the animation is better than some of the other films we've looked at. I mean, I know in Robin Hood, I think we had you on the Robin Hood episode, Maria.
I was, yeah. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I think we had you on that. I mean, you can see in that. I mean, as much as that film has its charm, there's limitations within the. You can see the cutbacks in the animation here, or you can see the cutbacks in the animation there, and where they've reused old animation sequences. I don't think that's the case here. Maybe I'm wrong, Victoria.
Not that I'm aware of, although they did kind of experiment with, like, because computer technology was up and coming in the 80s and they were trying to capitalize on that. So a lot of the New York traffic was done by computer. Sykes's really creepy car was all computer, but I think the animation kind of improves with this film because a lot of the animators that worked in this film were new guys, and they all went on to work in the Renaissance era. Like, one of them, I'm not sure which characters that he does in this film, but there's an animator called Andreas Deja who did, like, Jafar and Scar, a lot of the Renaissance villains, and you can kind of see his style in this. So I think the animation strengths in this are coming from newcomers.
Yeah, and funny you mentioned the villain. I think the film doesn't have a great... I mean, much as I love Robert Loggia, and that primarily comes... I am going to play a clip. I'm sorry, by the way, listeners. I have had the cold, and I am bunged, so I don't have sexy Phoebe Buffay cold voice. I just have old man with bunged up nose.
Doesn't have sexy phlegm.
No, I don't have sexy phlegm. But I'm going to have this in a second. So I'm going to play this little clip for you, dear listener. And this is primarily rewatching this film. I was reminded of this one little sequence from Family Guy. And allow me for a second to digress.
Oh, man, I hate kids' birthday parties. This is going to be worse than that time I was stuck behind Robert Loggia at the airport.
May I have your name, please?
Robert Loggia.
Can you spell that for me?
Certainly. That's Robert Loggia. R as in Robert Loggia. O as in, oh my God, it's Robert Loggia. B as in, by God, that's Robert Loggia. E as in, everybody loves Robert Loggia. R as in, Robert Loggia. T as in, Tim, look over there, it's Robert Loggia. Space. L as in, look, it's Robert Loggia.
Yes, so when I was watching that film, that one little clip was in my mind anytime Robert Loggia showed up on screen. He's not the best. It's a weird film because you kind of have Dom DeLuise in this, and then you have Robert Loggia as Sykes. And I know that's kind of going back to the source material, but it just, I don't know, he's a weird villain. Mm-hmm. And then they have this weird plan that they're going to, is it the daughter? No, it's the cat that they decide to hold hostage, isn't it?
Yeah, they hold Oliver hostage because the girl, Jenny, that adopts him comes from a rich family. So they're like, right, if we kidnap Oliver, she'll be forced to pay the ransom. It's
a weird plan. If you're a criminal mafia boss, like he appears to be with his big swanky car, that's a shit plan. Like, come on. Like, let's be honest. I mean, that's a shit plan.
Like, are they really going to blackmail a child over a cat?
It's weird.
I can see you're both coming to my side now.
You be quiet.
Oh, I don't need to do anything.
Yeah, because I mean, Dom, I think it's a weird thing. Like, Fagin, I can't remember, isn't it Alec Guinness plays Fagin in the kind of Oliver Twist? I think it's Alec Guinness. I'm nearly certain it's Alec Guinness. In the same one with the Harry Moore Seacom in that version. I know that kind of Sykes is much more kind of the cold-hearted, nasty character from that source material.
Yeah.
But Dom DeLuise, as much as I love that man, and I think he does doesn't he do a couple of voices in this? Kind of like background characters as well, and other like kind of small minor characters. I could be wrong. But he's almost kind of like Fagin's a lovable oaf in this, and that's not who he is in... It's been a while. I mean, I read Oliver Twist at school. I watched the musical. I've probably seen it umpteen times in television. Mm-hmm. Fagin's not kind of the... I know he's meant to be charismatic and he's meant to be this person that draws them in draws Oliver and Co into this kind of lifestyle and makes it much more appealing. But he's not Dom DeLuise. He's not kind of this lovable kind of guy that's going to end up almost... Key question, on that note, right?
Mm-hmm.
Much in the way like in the end of Planes, Trains and Automobiles, I like to believe that John Candy moves in and lives with Steve Martin's character until one of them die, right? Do they all just move in and live with Jenny's family at the end of this? Because they all seem to be having a little party around there, or are they just kind of visiting?
I think they're just visiting.
Because Fagin's there and he's with.
They're visiting.
Because Fagin's there, they're watching the boxing.
That's right.
And they're all like, "Oh yeah, you're lovable. You know, you kidnapped the cat, but it's fine.
We get it.
It's fine. You had to get. Oh my God, it's Robert Loggia. You had to kind of work for him. You had to get him the money, but I don't know. It's just weird. Do you not think like Dom DeLuise, as much as I love that man and his voice, it's a weird, his portrayal of Fagin in this, and I guess maybe it's coming kind of back to what Maria said, that sense of kind of cherry picking what you want from the source material. It doesn't really seem like the Fagin character we know from Oliver Twist.
No, like you were saying, Maria, like you could change their names.
Maria, I'm just going to cut. I'm just really worried, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
You and I are going to team up on Victoria, and she's going to come away from this going, I really don't like Oliver.
No,
please don't do this to me.
We're not here to change your mind. Only you can do that. But we can put up some very good points.
I will hear what you have to say. But yeah, like in all seriousness, this is not the Fagin we see in any of the book adaptations, any of the film, TV ones.
Well, he's never been a dog before. That is true. No, sorry,
No,
not
wait,
a
no,
dog.
That's
Sorry.
Dodger.
Dodger.
No, sorry. Ignore that point.
Like you could change their names and it wouldn't matter. Like he's not Fagin, and he's not, like you said, he's meant to be charismatic. He's not really. They all kind of just feel sorry for him. Like they take care of him.
He seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, but that's...
He seems like a nice guy who's fallen on hard times and into a life of crime where they're going to kidnap cats. What a shit plan.
Desperate measures.
The criminal mastermind of New York. I will kidnap cats.
I liked his wee scooter. I'll say that much for him.
Yeah, that was cute.
I think you're right though in that like he becomes like a bumbling, lovable character.
Yeah.
There's no actually any, because like the whole thing is like he gets the dogs to gather up stuff for him, but it's trash, and like he took a loan from Bill Sykes.
Yeah, and also like
which is never really explained.
Yeah, he gets a loan, and then it's like, let's send some dogs out to get some trash. I think like you have to have problems there. I mean, at some point, surely, maybe the problem is with Sykes. Like, what have you got as collateral? Well, I've got this broken tennis racket.
Yeah.
I've got all this kind of shit. Whatever we can find on the pier, that's going to make me my money back. Come on.
I think that's the thing about it, though, is that, like you say, it's not really the character Fagin. Bill Sykes isn't really the character Bill Sykes because there's no Nancy.
Mm. Yeah.
And I like it. I think that was the thing when I was watching it, was I was like, where's Nancy in this? And this is as somebody who obsessively watched I'd Do Anything, the BBC One search for Nancy and Oliver. Like, I think about her all the time. Shout out that show. Love it. But no, I think that's the thing, like watching it, like you said earlier, you watched it as a kid when you weren't really aware of like like maybe you'd watched a version of Oliver Twist, but you weren't thinking this is Oliver Twist. Whereas when I was watching it this time, I was like, where is the storyline here to do with, like, it's a really loose adaptation. It's more like a character's.
Yeah, because as I come back to the point where it doesn't feel kind of connected, you have all this stuff at the start with little Oliver and he's trying to get chicken in, and then, you know, Billy Joel fucks him over with his sausages. And then it kind of moves. There's the sequence in the car where the dogs are doing the heist, where it's like, we're going to do this skit where we're going to... How does that work, by the way?
It's so funny, though.
I know it's funny. It's like Francis, like, I'll just fall over. But if there's no human there, how, like, are they going to get... What's their plan? So the dog gets knocked over, but there's, like, Fagin's not about to go, you hit my dog, so can I have some money, please? What's the point?
Yeah, why were they hot wiring the car? I can't remember. I'm sure they had a reason.
So, I mean, was it a case like they go, here's all our junk. Oh, by the way, here's like about 10 cars we stole that you just don't see off. I mean, it's weird when you think about it. I mean, the whole point is that Francis, he loves his drama. He pretends to get hit by the car, and then they're out looking. So are they planning to steal the car? Clearly, if they're hot wiring it, that seems to be the plan. These dogs are bastards. They're a menace.
Menace to society. I'm going to have to go back and watch it now because there must have explained
watch it with
what
Maria.
their logic
Absolutely. I literally anything else. Actually, no, because that might invite.
We will never be friends again if I make her watch this again.
No, I was just thinking, what if it suggested that we watched The Bells Enchanted Christmas? I should
Double bill.
Yeah, but no, I think the thing is I would watch pretty much any other Disney film over this, including the likes of say Moana,
even Black Cauldron.
I would prefer to watch Black Cauldron. I think, yeah. I think I as a kid really liked that film. I've not watched it since. Whereas with this one, I vividly remembered not liking it. So I think that was part of the problem. Because
I never watched either of these. I mean, I find Black Cauldron more interesting now in that sense of where you can physically see a studio struggling with itself and what it's trying to do. And it's like, oh, we want to do this. Oh, we can't go that far. Maybe we'll do this. Oh, we can't really do that. And then we're going to cut this and cut that. And it looks terrible at times. Here, it's just like, let's make something.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think it's a bit meh. And I want to come back to, because you mentioned this. And I mean, I've read Oliver Twist. I remember reading it at school, and I know that kind of sets my mind towards it in that sense of I think it was like, oh fuck, I remember having to read this at school, Jesus. But we always talk about being gateway drugs into stuff. Is another way of looking at this, although it very loosely uses the story. Because Oliver Twist, it's a dark story. I'm not saying you're going to sit down a 3-year-old kid and go, sit down and watch that. But it's a gateway drug, I suppose, possibly to introducing Oliver Twist to a younger viewer. No? Yes?
I get the idea. I think that's the thing for me. As a kid, it's probably thoroughly enjoyable. You've got sassy dogs wandering around stealing stuff. There's
cars.
Lovable. There's stealing cars, hot wiring cars, teaching children how to hot wire a car and not get electrocuted. But I think the thing is, for me, unfortunately, I just have the total bias of I've watched this as an adult, and all I can think about is, where's Nancy? I don't know. There was just too much. Like I said before, there was too little of what I would have expected, and too much of I don't know what this is, but they've put it in here. Don't get me wrong, I loved Bette Midler's number.
Oh,
absolutely fantastic.
She is the greatest introduction of quite a few Disney characters.
That glitzy little skirting.
Oh, she's so fun.
Yeah.
Because it's weird, because you think to yourself it's going to be a vehicle for Billy Joel.
Yeah.
Because you can kind of get a sense of, right, Billy, we want you to write some songs. You're going to be in it. And I think this is, I can't think of ever seeing him in anything else. I know he's not in it, but I mean, it's his voice this time. And you can kind of get that, but then it kind of shifts on. I don't think it shifts completely to Bette Midler, but then you have that big number from her, and then you've got two big presences like that in this. And I think it was you said, Maria, it just feels a bit wasted in the sense you've got these big performers, this big talent, and you've got quite a few. As I mentioned earlier on, you've got Cheech Marin kind of in there as well. Cheech Marin, sorry. I should say, Dom DeLuise as well. I'm just reading this. Robert Loggia, you've got as well. So it has got an impressive cast.
Yeah.
I do feel like it maybe started life as a vehicle for Billy Joel. That's the only way I can think of this really working. We're going to work this, Billy. It's going to be based on Oliver Twist. Oh, and by the way, at a certain sequence, Bette Midler is going to appear. I don't know. I mean, I am not going to be rushing to rewatch it. Thankfully, I mean, on the second attempt, or third, I should say, when we said we're going to finally get this episode recorded, I was like, right, I'm going to watch it. Because if we hadn't have, I was like, I'm not rewatching it again. But I feel bad, Victoria. You're a little fish. You're like Oliver at the start of this. You're like Oliver at the start. It's like, why won't they pick me? Why won't they pick Oliver and Company?
It's like, I will admit, I do love this film, but it's not a favourite. It's not one that I would be quick to watch if I wanted like my Disney fix, because it doesn't feel that Disney-ish. And
do you think, just on that note, do you think that is a case of Disney reacting to what was round at that time? I'm not sure when Five Old Goes West was released. I know we have Land Before Time is out the same time as this. All Dogs Go to Heaven is not Disney. I'm not sure when that was released. I mean, I love that. I love that film. We have like stuff like Fern Gully as well. All this, it all seems to be very samey in the style. Maybe not in kind of what the narrative, what they're trying to say. But when I think of them visually, they all they'll feel very samey. Where you don't have that charm of when I think of what maybe this is mine. And I guess, I know I'm rambling. I guess this has been a good thing with this dark era retrospective. It's challenging the idea of what you think of as a Disney movie. Because you kind of think of Disney, you think of Cinderella, you think of Beauty and the Beast, you think of The Little Mermaid as well, you think of maybe Aladdin more recently. I'm sure there's other ones. It's like in the same way you kind of see later on in Disney, you see stuff like Atlantis, which is another one that I love because I went to see that in the cinema. But it probably, thinking about it, it doesn't feel like a Disney movie. You're both nodding at me. So, I mean, I don't know, your thoughts?
see, that era of Disney is also kind of weird because you had like the likes of Atlantis, Treasure Planet, and all them kind of.
Emperor's New Groove, isn't that kind of in there?
Yes,
it's a really like spiky era where they have ones that are really well like considered. Like Lilo and Stitch, I think, is that era as well. Like it's another era where they're almost like throw it at a wall and see what sticks.
But Maria, I love Maria. I love Maria. Maria, I love Lilo and Stitch.
No, and I'm like, it's a really fun film. But
just for the opening 10 minutes, Lilo and Stitch, perfect. Just when he comes to Earth and wants to destroy everything. I sit there and I put it on for my lovely wife not so long ago because we were babysitting neighbours, and I have a kindred spirit. There's our next door neighbour, Chloe. She loves Lilo and Stitch. She comes over and she's like, look at my Lilo and Stitch jacket. It's like, we're friends. And we put it on, and I think I was laughing more than her. I still now, as a 41-year-old man, I was like, I love this. So Lilo and Stitch is top tier.
See, there's some...
Even though, didn't they want to change it? Or isn't in the more recent versions of Disney, isn't it one of the ones where the Stitch or the girl goes into the washing machine?
Yeah, and they've changed it so kids don't go into the washing machine.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Wankers.
I think that's the thing about that era, though, is like, kind of like after, like post-Renaissance, they didn't really know what to do because was it Shrek came out and like absolutely smashed the Oscars?
Yes, and they were like, "What the fuck has happened? Like, we need to up our game here." But like, if you look at Disney scholars and stuff, they would say this is the second Dark Age because, like you were saying, they're just throwing anything at the wall to see if it sticks. There's some gems that came out of it, like Lilo and Stitch and Emperor's New Groove's getting a lot of love recently. But there's a lot of weird ones from that era.
Are we in that era again? Because I know as we record this episode, Wish has just been released. And I have no real inkling to go see Wish. And I know it's been sold as like the film 100 years in the making. It's all to do with Disney's history. And you're like, I don't know. It just feels a bit meh. We had today, as we go to record, Disney have confirmed that not just Frozen 3 is happening, Frozen 4 is happening. They're working on the two films back to back. Whether they'll be connected, I don't know, because that seems to be, they've admitted pretty much that Frozen is their big franchise now, and that's their really big brand.
They don't need a franchise.
Everything's franchises now.
Yeah.
Everything's franchise.
That's insane.
Isn't
3
it?
and 4.
Yeah.
I didn't like 2 that much.
No, me neither.
And it's weird. I mean, that film's, 20-year-old? 10-year-old?
10.
10.
Don't scare me.
Sorry. That film's 10-year-old. I know at one point you and I, Victoria, muted the idea of doing a kind of little Frozen retrospective. You know, we have the seconds now. If you want to very quickly kind of talk about that. I mean, that was a massive turning point, I guess, for Disney. But I guess people also then forget about Tangled, which was out. And
Love
Tangled is so good.
I love Tangled. I love Princess and the Frog. Like there's a little bubble there where it's a great again, and then there's been so long where I was like, I think the first time I watched Moana was on a film, like as a film was on a plane, and I just remember being like, I'm here for 6 hours. I might as well watch this. And I think that's how I feel about a lot of the recent
Moana
releases.
seems to have so much love.
I didn't enjoy Moana. I didn't even watch. Is it the Little
Raya
Dinosaur
or something?
I haven't watched Raya. The
Well,
Last
Little
Dragon.
Dinosaurs.
It's Pixar, is it?
Pixar.
Oh, okay. I didn't like either. What do you call the one that's got we don't talk about Bruno? Is that Pixar?
Oh, Encanto.
I liked parts of Encanto. I did not like all, and I think that's my
Yeah.
problem with a lot of the newer ones is I like parts of it, whereas
Yeah.
I don't. I'll go and watch the music from that film a lot, especially after I watched it. I listened to that song a lot, but I wouldn't put
Because
it
it
on.
was everywhere.
I know.
Everywhere. You weren't meant to talk about it, but you had to fucking listen to the song.
Over and over.
It is weird because you look at kind of the Frozen. I think I've kind of mentioned this point before, maybe on the TV show, maybe to you, Brian. It's kind of very Broadway Disney. It's that sense of like, we can see this working on stage. This could work.
Yeah.
So
do you think the remakes are part of the problem?
I don't know. I know I was reading somewhere like Dwayne Johnson said his next project is the live action version of Moana. And
Why? It
But
only
yet-
came out in 2016.
But yet Disney are so precious. They're like, Frozen's not being touched. Frozen seems to be their baby now. And I think the first Frozen is great. And it's clever in what it's doing. The songs are great. I think what it's kind of trying to do in kind of the history of Disney and kind of looking at things. The sequel is a real mess for me. It doesn't work. Although the sequel does have interesting ideas. Well, no,
Yeah.
we don't have time to go into talk about it now. It does have interesting things. But I think as a sequel, it's underwhelming. And it's that sense of, now Disney seems to... I guess we put it into context. Disney owns so much now. We've had the MCU. That was their money maker for a while. That doesn't seem to be the case right now as we record. The Marvels has not found an audience at cinemas. Some of them have not worked in the same ways that they had hoped. There seems to be a much more plan now of viewing these films as content as opposed to art, which I think goes with the complete antithesis and the opposite of what Walt Disney kind of thought of.
Yeah.
And you look at, and I know we're kind of rambling off to a tangent in like what we do. I think of like that lovely little video that Disney did for celebrating the 100th anniversary, and you go, it has got heart and it does seem genuine, but it's content. It's content that'll spend whatever it is 8 minutes me watching on your Disney Plus streaming service. That's all that it is now. And I know, is it Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney? Apologies if I'm getting your name wrong, Bob. Apologies, Bob, if I'm getting your name wrong. But I know he's kind of said, we have to reset. It's that the sense of during the pandemic, we did think of stuff as content and we needed more content, more, because people were stuck at home. Now we're not in that situation. So it is a weird, and I know we're kind of jumping. We've jumped from talking about Oliver and Company, which, sorry, Brian, Maria and I didn't really like.
Hadn't noticed.
Sorry to kind of build that. But I think it's interesting kind of looking at parallels now. I suppose we can kind of allow ourselves now that we've talked about all these films over quite a long time in terms of this retrospective. I guess this is a nice kind of, this is something that's coming to an end now. We don't know really what we're going to do with these Disney themed episodes going forward. I know we'll have our Christmas special next month, but generally, how do you look back now at the dark era?
I think it's nice looking back because obviously we were looking at it in the context of where the studio was at the time. So I think the first film was 101 Dalmatians or The Aristocats.
Yep.
Whatever one that was, that was back in the 60s. So this is a 20-year span of a studio. That's a long time.
It's nearly taken us that long to get through it. I guess probably about 3 years, 2 years.
2 years, I think.
2 years, give or take, with COVID.
Yeah.
I got to introduce you to The Rescuers.
You did. It's in my top 10 now because I'd never seen that before doing this series. So it's nice to look back on it and be introduced to films that I never watched before. Like I'd never seen The Black Cauldron either. wasn't a fan, but now I know. And looking back on films that I have loved and kind of trying to remove the rose-tinted glasses and putting it into context of what was happening with the studio at the time to understand why it looks like that, why they went that direction. It gives me, even with the films that weren't great, it gives me a better appreciation for Disney as a studio. Not Disney now. I have very different opinions on Disney now, as I'm sure you kind of got that vibe from all three of us there. But I appreciate that period and what the animators were trying to do. And I respect that period of Disney a lot more than I respect it now.
I think for me, I mean, I would agree with everything you say. I mean, The Rescuers stands out, and it's interesting that of all of the films we've talked about, I think The Rescuers from this dark era is the only one that got a cinematic sequel, because The Rescuers 2 was released, what, 90s? I think it was.
Yeah, like 92?
92, I mean, that's going back for a film that's, what, in the 70s, The Rescuers? I mean, of all those Disney films, I know there was the dreaded DVD sequels or Disney Channel sequels. The Rescuers, I think, part of me is probably that. I have a special love for that film. We talked about that. Go back and re-listen to that podcast where I think I either make you cry, Victoria, or I make Therese cry. I know I had you both on. We were talking about that. We talked about Winnie the Pooh. And I know during that time, because I think those were recorded about lockdown. During lockdown. I think, you know, I took considerable weird, perverse glee in the fact that when I got to recreate scenes from The Rescuers and make people cry, because that's who I am. I'm a bad person. But The Rescuers for me stands up. I mean, The Aristocats is great. Robin Hood, Maria, you've mentioned that you love.
Big fan.
It didn't grab me in the same sense. I have my same problem. I don't like the voice for Robin Hood. It's the small hill I know I'm prepared to die on. The Fox and the Hound is fine. It's just really depressing. The Black Cauldron is interesting in where it is as a film and what it represents for Disney, but as a piece of art in its own right, I think it's flawed. And then we kind of get these. We've had this, Basil. They're meh. But I don't know. For you, I know we haven't had you on all of these, Maria. Have you any of these kind of within? I know we've mentioned Robin Hood in the dark era for Disney. Is anything other than Robin Hood that really stands out for you?
I really liked the Aristocats as a kid. I think there's just like, again, it's that sort of thing of like, I think in that era more than anything, it was like cute animals are the thrust of the story. You know, like humans are
even though it's racist now.
Yeah.
Even though it's racist.
Yeah, that's true.
And
actually, I didn't.
Maria, why does a horse want to be a cat?
I like, and I can't emphasize this enough. I can't answer that question. I don't think any of the animators who made that could answer that question. But like, I think that's the thing. Like I haven't watched the Aristocats since I was a kid, but I fondly remember like how cute. What do you call the little white cat with a pink bow? Marie, what an adorable little cat. Like, whereas I think, and with Robin Hood, which I am a huge fan of, I just think of like, it's such a romantic film, and it has so many silly moments that like the bit where he's like, alms for the poor. That's me every time payday's coming round. Like, there's very specific moments from like that kind of era where I'm like, yeah, I really like these films, but like a lot of them I wouldn't rewatch. And I think that says more than anything else. Like, it's really Renaissance era for me is the ones that I would rewatch. Or even like we mentioned earlier, like Tangled. I love Treasure Planet. I rewatched Atlantis during lockdown, I think, and was like, oh, what a great film. But it was that thing of like going back and being like, yeah, that is my own ramble there. Like,
you're in good company. I mean, this is what I do. Victoria doesn't ramble. I ramble, so you're allowed to ramble.
But I think that's the nice thing about doing like the kind of the retrospectives is you look back in it and you think, how did I watch this the first time round? You know, and I think with this film, less is said, the better.
Yeah, I kind of think on that note, I mean, I kind of agree with you. I know we've had your lovely mum Victoria on this pod defending Oliver and Company as well, but I think it's definitely 2 against 1 on this one.
Yeah.
I mean, And
I can see why.
I'm not as negative as Maria.
I'm deeply negative.
I
understand.
I don't love Nancy as much as you do. I just find it a disjointed film, and I just think around this time, in a way, like you mentioned Shrek later in Disney's kind of time period, other studios were on a similar par, if not doing things slightly better. But that's just me. I mean, for one last time, I would say without a doubt, if you take anything from this, yes, go back and look back at all the different Disney films we've talked about. But if you've never watched it, go out and seek Fievel Goes West. Just for one last time, as we get the opportunity in this podcast for me to just unashamedly, loudly, passionately, Fievel! Fievel! Yes. That's, if you take anything this dark era retrospective, as much it is going back and watch The Rescuers, and as much it is kind of go back and listen to Winnie the Pooh, and listen to find those podcasts and kind of get all upset about kind of how sweet and genuinely their heart is in the right place, also watch Fievel Goes West. So on that note, I mean, that pretty much brings this pod to a close. Victoria, I know we have we're at a state of flux now. We've kind of mentioned this. We don't really know what we're going to do going forward with these Disney specials. I mean, there's a lot of films within Disney's back catalogue, both animated and both live action. Please, can we talk about Blackbeard's Ghost? Please, can we talk about Blackbeard's Ghost? Or even the Herbie movies. Anything like that. But
was it The Black Hole as well you wanted me to watch? Okay, yes.
So good. So those are possibilities. We don't know what we're going to do in 2024. But before that, we have the small matter of the now traditional Christmas special. So do you want to tell us what we're going to be talking about in that?
I am so excited to record this one. So we are going to be talking about Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas.
Oh, Maria, I don't know. Would you like to come back for that pod?
I could be persuaded.
There we go. It's not Oliver and Company. You know, you don't have to rewatch that again. There you go. You're back to the room. So you've that to look forward to next month. So all that's really left for me to do now is thank my two guests. So thank you very much, Maria.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks very much, Victoria.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening. As we've already mentioned a couple of times, we have all these back catalogues. They're available wherever you get your podcasting fix. You can find them all. You can go back and specifically pick out the Disney episodes if you want to hear more rambly, kind of Adam Neeson kind of themed episodes, or with Joe McElroy. They're all there. And sadly, I am there too for my rambly nonsense. But you've all those podcasts to listen to, and stay tuned because we're going to have a few more specials coming up. And we've already mentioned next month in December, we're going to have a lot of Christmas themed episodes. So that's all pretty much me selling my wares. So all that's left for me to do is thank you very much. Thank my guests again, and we'll be back next week with another episode. But for now, until then, goodbye.